Hi guys, this is Alex, the dev for Neolithic. So firstly, thanks for all the feedback I've been getting. You guys have obviously been a huge help, and the game wouldn't be what it is without you. I know I haven't given out a lot of detailed information on the game, so I thought I'd make this series of videos to give you guys a better idea of what I'm trying to achieve and what's in the game at the moment. So the game goes through several distinct stages where the gameplay changes pretty dramatically, and this video is basically just intended to give a bit of insight into the very first stage, where we set up the tribe and culture and start to manage a small group of people as they found their village. So this information is probably going to be a little bit detailed if this is the first you've seen of the game, so you might want to check out the Kickstarter if you haven't already. Probably also just keep in mind that a lot of the artwork here is only temporary, particularly the UI, and so I'll be working on that as development continues. By the way, the great music that you can hear in the background was sent in by Moritz Sebastian, who said he was inspired by the Kickstarter video. But anyway, let's get started. So, first choice you're going to make in Neolithic is your culture. And at the moment there are three cultures, the Mycenaeans, the Egyptians and the Sumerians. And though the Egyptians were originally a stretch goal, I thought it made a lot more sense to put them in now, even if it means a little bit more work for the moment. So there are three aspects to each culture, and the first one is your regular cultural bonuses. The second is your starting resources, and this is a little bit more like, say, Banished, where if you want to grow an apple orchard you need apples to start production. The third category is items and buildings, and there isn't actually a lot in this category at the moment, but I'm planning to expand it quite a lot as development continues. The next screen is tribe customization, and so this screen's about what is the story of your tribe. For the moment I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the various options here. The main one to know for now is your tribe's specialty, and this is where you can kind of pick some more strengths and weaknesses to your tribe. The concept is perhaps like picking a Greek culture and making them more Athenian or Spartan. Of course they were both Greek cultures, but they were vastly different in their traditions and strengths. Eventually you'll also be able to do a bit of visual customization here, so tweaking skin tones and choosing which body art you want for your people and that kind of thing. Finally we get to the tribe members, and so these are the 5 characters you'll actually be starting the game with. By the way, the female art here is just temporary, so I'll be replacing this eventually with something much more suited to the time. So each character is actually quite unique, and they all have unique traits which can get passed down to their offspring. So over time they unintentionally actually kind of propagate through your people and tend to help define your strengths and weaknesses. The stats shown here make quite a bit of difference in terms of how well a character can perform a task. So for example, high finesse will help quite a lot with crafting and so on. So once we load up the game, the first thing to do is choose a starting position, which I'll go into a lot more detail with in another video. For the moment we just need to make sure we're close enough to fresh water. The first thing we need to do is build a stockpile and a fire. The stockpile will function as a place where villagers can drop off resources, and we need the fire to be able to craft basic items like axes and spears. Also, until we have some houses, your villagers are going to need the fire to keep warm at night. The villagers will take care of their own needs as they go about their day, so you won't have to manually tell them to eat and sleep and rest and that kind of thing. My first objective here is to grow the population, and to do that we'll need food and housing. And because crops are seasonal, this means we need to plan ahead. So for example, this grain crop here needs to be in before the spring. Placing crops is basically freeform, so you can just kind of drag them around like I'm doing here. The only constraint is that they actually have to be near water, and you can actually expand the water zone with a shadoof, which I'm going to put in here. Once that's done, I'm going to start with my housing, and the reason I didn't do this first is because once women become pregnant, they'll stop working for a little while, and I just wanted to make sure we had enough labour to get the crops in time. So once the house is up, a male and a female character will move in, and almost as soon as they do, they'll start having children. And the number of children they actually have is limited by the house, so in the long term you'll need to upgrade houses and build more, but I'll get into that in another video. For the moment I might talk a little bit about items. So this is basically a place where you can invest to increase the productivity of your characters. Now the polished stone axe I've got here is probably a pretty good example because it takes quite a lot of time to create, but it significantly increases your character's ability to harvest the wood. Another thing to keep in mind here is that characters perform tasks much better or worse based on their stats, so it can actually make quite a lot of sense to give, say, crafting duties to a character with high finesse, and then perhaps pass on items like this polished stone axe to someone with a lot of strength who can get the most use out of it. So this micromanagement stuff will become a lot less necessary as you kind of scale up through the game and processes become more automated. So hunting can be a really efficient way to start the game, but it's almost impossible without some kind of ranged weapon. So I'm going to create a javelin here, which is a lot less accurate than a bow, and it only has 4 shots which kind of regenerate over time, but it's a lot faster to create, and because this character has quite a lot of finesse, they should be able to hit their mark in 4 shots. So as it becomes night, the characters are just going to start to go to sleep. You can fast forward if you like, and when they wake up they'll just go back to their work. So characters prefer to sleep at night, but if they're tired enough they'll sleep in the day. Another thing that you'll notice here is that female characters who are with child aren't actually able to be selected, and you also can't select children until they reach maturity. So as the season comes around to autumn, this will mean we can harvest our crop. And so crops have a pretty big payoff, and they'll also give us a ton of straw, which will be really useful for lots of things, including creating huts. So I think this is probably a pretty good place to leave it for the moment and continue on with another video where I'll be getting more into the city building aspects. Anyway, I hope you all have a great new year, and I'll talk to you next time.